Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Madison Realty Capital, New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, AmTrust Title, Customers Bank, Ariel Property Advisors, Capital One Bank, Sterling National Bank, Marks Paneth LLP, Meridian Capital Group. Additional funding has been provided by grants from Amarant Bank, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Briarwood Organization, B6 Real Estate Advisors, CBRE, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Chase Mortgage Lending, Citizens Bank, Collins Building Services, CPEX Real Estate Services, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott INC, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, Matone Group, Newmark Knight Frank, Optimum Window Manufacturing Corp., People's United Bank, Rockefeller Group, Rosewood Realty Group, RPW Group, SJP Properties, Stonehenge NYC, TD Bank, Terra CRG, the Merengor Family Foundation, and these friends. The word today is opportunity zone. It's in the newspapers. It's in all these articles. It's a topic of discussion. But people really don't understand what the opportunity zone means, who is it good for, who should be investing in it, and what they should do. So today, with the help of my executive producer, Mike Horowitz, I've assembled a group of individuals to discuss everything you really want to know about opportunity zones, which won't be subject to the next change in legislation. My guests include Mike Horowitz, who is a tax partner at REITs at Marks Paneth LLP, Toby Moskowitz, who is the founder CEO of Heritage, and last but not least, Francis Lively, who is the president and CEO of the LCP Group. So, you're a real estate developer, you're a real estate investor, okay, and you're the advisor. Why don't somebody define what is this opportunity zone and what the portion of the tax law?
The new tax act that was passed is passed this opportunity zone fund, and what it allows is investors to take gain monies and redeploy it into these opportunity zones and build up underserved areas around the nation. The government there's about 8,700 census tracts across the country. Each state has census tracts, and eligible taxpayers with gains, whether it's in stock, personal property, can take that gain money and redeploy it into one of these zones and get substantial tax incentives, tax savings, tax exclusions.
Francis, why don't you tell me what your company does, and I think that we can understand why you're planning to get involved with the Opportunity Zone.
Sure. We're an investment manager, sponsor of real estate investments. We acquire mostly hotels and multifamily, and we've raised money abroad for the EB-5 program and capitalized about a dozen projects throughout the U.S. We see the Opportunity Zone tax law as an ability to allocate high net worth capital in the U.S. that's looking for real estate value into these areas. We can find those opportunities for them, invest alongside them, and structure it in a tax efficient manner. And the investors that we're working with in the Opportunity Zone funds that we're raising are investors that typically don't have a high allocation to real estate. They may be very allocated to the equities market and therefore have a gain that they can take advantage of under the Opportunity Zone legislation.
A real estate investor like Toby always had the opportunity to invest in what we call a 1031 exchange. Now we're talking about somebody who may have made money in a different means, okay? As we were trying to talk about in the green room before, take somebody who was in a startup in Silicon Valley or a company over there. The company went public. They have significant gains from their stock valuation. They were 30 cents, and now, maybe their basis on the whole thing was $1,000, and their profit is $150,000. Right now, they'd have to pay capital gains. Under the Opportunity Zone rule, what are the rules?
Well, for starters, let's just go back. I don't think the Opportunity Zones will take the place of like-kind exchanges. Your true real estate
I'm not
player
disagreeing,
is
but what I'm specifically, and I want my audience to understand, here's an individual, okay, who's made maybe, they bought Amazon stock in 1998, okay, and the stock has gone to a level, or they bought Apple when it was $5 a share, and even though the stock is at $170 a share, they still have significant gain. So they have this, and otherwise, if they sold their stock today, they'd have to pay a long-term capital gain.
So you could take that gain, instead of taking the gain on the Microsoft or Amazon and paying tax on it now, what you can do is take the gain, not the principal portion. You could take the gain money, reinvest it in one of these Opportunity Zones, and what comes with it is these tax benefits. There's really three of them, and the first one is you don't pay tax on it right away. It's a deferred gain. So theoretically, if you have a $100 gain on Amazon, you don't pay tax today on it. You'd pay tax on it in 2026.
So let's understand, and I want you to talk, and I want Francis and Toby to bring it out. Okay, I have a $10,000 profit. I invest that $10,000 with Francis's company or with Toby in her entity over here. I have to put that money in there. I'm not paying taxes now. I have the gain. I have a certain holding period that I have to keep with you. How long is the holding period?
5 years for a 10% step up in basis.
Well, explain what a step up in basis means.
You have the, say, $10,000 gain. After 5 years, if you hold the investment, you would get a step up in basis of 10%. So if you hold it for another 7 years, you get an additional 5%. So then when you...
Well, that means in plain English, just if you don't mind
it's
me...
It's an exclusion.
Yeah, that basically, that when you're both deferring the taxes for 7 years, and when you pay it, depending on the actual year that you make the investment, you're saving 15% effectively.
So the stock...
You're paying 15% less.
So let's look at it this way. If you had a $10,000 profit, and if you hold it for 7 years, your $10,000 profit is really only $8,500. It's $8,500
in 2026.
So you've taken an interest-free loan, so to speak, from the federal government to invest.
Your three benefits are you avoid paying taxes immediately. You get the step up in basis depending on how many years you hold.
On that personal asset.
That's the savings and taxes.
Right.
On that first asset.
Savings and taxes, as long as tax rates don't change. And then if you hold it for 10 years, your gain on the capital gain that you invested is tax-free.
Now, this is federal taxes.
Federal.
What about state taxes? What's the clarification on that? Or is there a clarification?
Most states will follow the federal because, again, the states are the ones...
Okay, most states will follow, but we don't have a specific knowledge if that's totally correct yet.
That's correct.
States have to determine that. And then I have two other questions. What happens if the person passes on the estate, okay? What happens to that?
That's a good question.
The fair value gets included in the estate. Currently, the way the regs read, the Treasury regulations read, it's a trap for the unwary, but the way it reads right now is it's included in your estate, so you would not get the benefits at that point.
You would lose the benefit.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah, but I want to go back also. I think what's so interesting, and Francis touched on it, is that real estate owners and investors, we're a little spoiled because we have this law called a 1031, a like-kind exchange, that we've lived with forever. So in our minds, there's always a mechanism to defer taxes. But if you go to someone who owns one of the original investors in Airbnb, Uber, or WeWork, someone who's owned Apple stock, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to reallocate their investment dollars and defer taxes. And I think that element of it, of bringing new money into real estate is significant.
But now we also have that other situation. One is that I brought up the potential risk for estates.
Don't die. Don't die if you go ahead and
Don't die. You know what?
Hold on. The life insurance guys are going to kick in because you're going to have to buy life insurance to protect yourself on this issue.
We've resolved that.
We
resolved that issue. Very good, Toby.
Okay, I remember somebody who was with an investment advisor, and he had a major estate of a world-renowned general, okay, a military general, who didn't make his money in the military, but made his money later on as being a member of boards. And there was a 1-year period of time that you didn't have to pay federal taxes, estate taxes. The guy died during that period of time. So the estate didn't follow. But here's the next question. What if I need the money? Okay? You have to be certain that I can hold this money, that I don't need it today.
That's a good point. When we were discussing this one issue, oftentimes in a real estate development, after 3 to 4 years, you can recapitalize your equity and replace it with debt as the value of the property goes up. As far as I understand, that particular issue and when you can take out your equity through some other means has not yet been clarified.
The results of it by taking it, that's correct.
Yeah.
Okay, but what I'm saying, it's a liquidity question also.
Well, you're selling the Amazon stock, and all you have to do is redeploy the gain. So you can take the principal back, your cost basis. So if you put that someplace,
but if my cost
and that's not an element.
Okay, fair point, fair point.
Okay, if my cost basis was so negligible and my gain is over there, I mean, you have individual high net worth investors, okay? I see them saying, look, this is an opportunity for me to now leave the equity world and invest and own a piece of the rock or a piece of the real estate. But there are certain assets that could be good. Now, here's the question that I don't have any clarification. If you bought a property in 2018, it qualifies, okay?
Correct.
If you bought the property before that, doesn't qualify? If you closed in 2017?
It doesn't qualify. The way the rules work, they talk about business property and qualified business property. It has to be purchased after 2017. So during 2018.
Right, and also the money has to be can be used for. You could open up a restaurant. You can open up an operating business. You can be in the hotel business. You can do a variety of things. There is a question of what they call the sin.
There's a sin business that you're not allowed to be invested in certain types of businesses, certain leisure businesses.
So here's a big question. Today, it's sin in many states
or it's not a sin
to be in the marijuana business. Okay.
That's not a business, Michael. That's not a sin business currently.
No. It's not.
Could be.
You to define the sin business.
No. It's not a sin business. But what I'm saying to you is that many people have said that a lot of money can be utilized in the opportunity zones, specifically in New Jersey, okay, if we had to take Newark or other markets over there, where you invest in a market and you get an industrial property, which is a greenhouse for the production of marijuana or other products over there.
Are you asking about the operating company inside the building?
The operating company.
So I think the history of where this legislation started is that, Sean Parker, who was the original founder of Napster, he was pushing this to try to encourage more venture capital dollars into low-income areas. So I think the genesis of this wasn't even real estate. It was about getting businesses.
It was putting money into businesses.
So if you would invest in a company and it's physically in an opportunity zone building and sold it after 10 years, all that gain would be tax-free. So I think the answer is yes, that it should push something beyond real estate.
One of the rules when we talk about businesses, not necessarily, real estate could be a business, but one of the trade or businesses that we're thinking about, a manufacturer or a retail center, there's an issue that 50% of the gross income has to be generated within the zone. So some of the manufacturers might have trouble because they're going to be delivering stuff out of state and theoretically sourcing the income either out of state or out of the zone. So there's an income issue with these businesses. So I think the way the regs talk about it, they talk about service businesses.
Now why are you, who is a regular developer, looking to tap the Opportunity Zone funds?
I've been investing basically in opportunity zone-like areas since I got involved in real estate. Going into emerging neighborhoods and trying to, find great locations and bring in, either residential, office, or hotel. So I think that it just will make my job a little easier in some of these neighborhoods where I think the deals make sense, where the more traditional banks wouldn't follow us because of the lack of comps.
Okay, so
they may be more flexible capital.
What you're saying to me is the flexibility as opposed to bank debt. What you're getting in a form is you're getting equity as opposed to debt.
Well, there may be, we're seeing that there are new kinds of investors, as Francis pointed out, that are maybe more willing to take the risk of emerging areas, whereas regular real estate investors are sometimes very regimented. They want to see comp, they're willing to take less risk, but these new investors are new to real estate and also have added benefit of the tax deferral that encourages them to take greater risk.
But the holding period is something that has one effect. You look at it that way. The other effect is that people like to have certain current income. The fact that you don't have liquidity, because you have to hold it for 5, 7, 10-year period, it's a different case. Do you see structuring the deals with liquidity?
At this point, I think that's one of the challenges. I actually bought a site in July of this past year. That's how I discovered what an opportunity zone was. It turned out it was in an opportunity zone, and I financed it with a traditional deal structure. I think that one of the challenges is that there's uncertainty. So whether it's liquidity, whether it's the ability to recapitalize in what I would call a reasonable time frame. But to your point, the deal structures are going to have to evolve to take this into account. A typical real estate investor, as we were discussing, doesn't expect to hold their deal for 10 years or have their money forced to stay in for 7 years. So the economics are going to have to change. I think
so what would you see as a profile? Yes?
This investor might. We have our first primary rules. We have to underwrite the deal to work on a real estate basis. We typically underwrite 5 to 7 years because that's the capital that we're investing. It's fund capital. But for a family office or high net worth that is looking for real estate allocation, one, and two, maybe looking for a net impact investment in an opportunity zone, we might underwrite to the 7 to 10 years and they're satisfied with that. The liquidity issue with the refinancing the debt hopefully gets solved in the next set of rules. Once you've developed and stabilized or repurposed a property, whether it's you refinance or maybe you bifurcate and sell the land and have a liquidity event that way, there's ways to structure it that could probably accomplish that.
Right, but
you could also probably borrow against your interest.
Aren't you supposed to utilize the funds within a period of time?
Say that question again. I'm sorry, Michael.
Okay, you have the funds. You've identified the property, but you have to utilize, what, 90% of the funds over a short period of time?
A qualified opportunity fund has to have 90% of its assets in qualified property.
Okay, and how long of a period before they have to put the 90% in?
Is it 36? Well, it's 36 months. Once it's in, isn't that what it has to go? The reason why people keep using the word fund, it's not really a fund. It's, as Francis mentioned, it's really a partnership
or corporation.
But the money has to be in that structure, whether it's an LLC or otherwise.
Fine.
And then it has time. It has about 36 months. Is that correct?
Yep.
That you have 36 months to deploy the actual cash.
Right.
And get the building built.
180 days into the fund.
Okay,
and because it's 101,
you got 180 days from when you sell your Amazon stock, or when you have that recognition treatment. It could be even delayed if you recognize.
You have 180 days to put the money into the
partnership.
To this partnership or whatever equity.
Which people are calling funds, but effectively is a partnership.
You have the right to put it into that.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's 180 days. Okay. The money is there, and then that money has to be redeployed into the asset. So let me get to a different topic. I bought a multifamily apartment house in New York City. Okay, I buy the property, and now I'm trying to, part of the money is going to be used to buy the property, and I'm also going to use some of the money that we put into this entity, this partnership, to improve the property, to renovate the property. That money has to be utilized over the next 36 months. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. You have another problem. You have to be deploying 101% of the original value. So we can let the tax expert talk about the land versus the building, but if you're looking just to renovate an existing building, you might not have enough juice. There might not be enough capital required to hit that threshold.
Would you
Would you explain what that means? From
I'll give the non-technical explanation.
I want the non-technical. That's why I'm asking you. Technical.
Is that the way the law is written is you need to effectively be whatever you're paying for your base case, whether it's land or building, and that's a whole separate conversation of how you divide the cost of land versus building. You have to be putting in capital 101% above the original purchase, whatever the original value
of the property, as
Correct.
opposed to the land.
Correct.
Okay?
And there's a little flexibility there in terms of how you
but
allocate
let's say-
land
let's
versus
say
building.
You have to
buying a
substantially
building
improve
for $10 million. The land, if I took the land basis from an appraisal, okay, which you probably will need an appraisal
Yes.
on the value, the land is valued at $200 a foot, hypothetically. But I paid $800 a foot for this 60-year-old, 80-year-old, 6-story walk-up in the village.
So you would have to be putting in $601 a square foot of improvement in order to comply with the opportunity zone requirements.
They
So
call
I
it.
have another $600.
That's right,
Yep.
right? Now that I have an
Substantial
expert here, I have to make sure that I know what I'm
Another $600
Yes.
above.
above that.
Which means this really lends itself to dramatic transformations like old warehouses getting knocked down and built from ground up. It doesn't really lend itself to what I call value add, traditional value add transactions. There's not enough juice, there's not enough capital
Right,
required.
so I can't really see it being utilized that much in like major office buildings,
It's just not, I mean,
Okay,
unless you
because-
knock it down.
unless you knock it down.
Yeah.
Now, there are the situations, and your office is in Westchester. There have been office buildings in Westchester and New Jersey which have been knocked down, and they've been building residential apartments on that type of property. I could see that being a use of the capital,
Correct.
okay? In the same way as building a hotel or building a small retail complex. Or
Yeah,
an
I think you
industrial.
need, I mean, I would say that I think it's very difficult to hit that threshold without something that looks like ground up construction or a
it's-
solid gut renovation.
We actually looked at a property in the French Quarter in New Orleans that would have been an adaptive reuse from apartment to hotel. And it was very hard to get that threshold to work and for the real estate returns to work. Now, when you factored in the tax benefits, it was an attractive deal, but we didn't get past first base, which was that we felt it was a good real estate deal, real estate fundamentals.
And going back to your question about those new sources of capital, this really has the opportunity to transform the real estate industry and also transform economically these neighborhoods, because you're talking about ground up construction that might not have happened without this pocket of capital for new assets. A lot of money has gone into value add across the board. But still, I think, just...
Right, and I do believe that banks, let's look at it this way, will feel good because there's additional equity going into the property as opposed to sponsors' equity, okay? A developer's putting money in, but now there's a developer who may be putting in X dollars, and their partners who came from the opportunity fund are putting in capital. So the combination may be more than the, let's say, this 35% amount of equity. You may have 40% of equity over there, which will help the situation. How are you going to structure your fund?
Well, just one way we've looked at, just getting back to that, addressing that issue, is bifurcating the land in the building. So having a separate investor on a long-term ground lease on the land and having the opportunity
It's a very
zone
interesting strategy.
investor on the adaptive reuse of the building. And then you have the match of your building cost basis and your renovation capital substantially
the
improving.
big question that you'll have is how the lender is going to look at a situation that it's a land lease.
If it's 99 years,
Goes out, right?
If
As time goes out.
Right, if it's
because it's
99
the start and it's 99 years,
right, if it's a
typically you can
99-year
get
land
financing.
lease, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
But I think it's the question if it's a shorter-term land lease on how somebody's looking at, and if there is a CPI, how they're going to look at the increase in the increase in the rent period of time.
Right.
And in many cases, land leases, people pay for the money up front and capitalize it.
I think the other thing that's not insignificant, which you touched on, is also it's not just about a sponsor and who's running the deal, but there are a lot of technicalities that have to be complied with. So vis-a-vis the investor, there's more due diligence that has to be done as to who, more like a fund structure. Who's the lawyer? Who's the accountant? Are they setting this up properly so that after we took this risk, thinking we would be deferring our taxes, we don't find ourselves in a situation?
How are you going to raise money? Who's going to raise the money for you? Or are you going to do it yourself?
Francis, we got Francis here.
Well, now I just met Francis. Thank you. But
That's why we brought Francis today.
I'm actually getting a lot of calls from people that are hearing about opportunity zones and interested in getting involved in real estate, or looking for new kinds of transactions, because historically they might have done more value add type transactions. So the traditional developers that they partnered with don't have the right kind of product that's suitable. There aren't a huge number of, at least in the outer boroughs, ground up developers
you know,
in the
look,
market.
From what I hear from the investment community, every one of the major brokerage firms are planning to have a fund, okay? You know, because their retail brokers will be happy because they're selling the stock, so they're leaving the equity business, they need this. The question on the fund is, what's the minimum investment do you see? Is it going to be 10,000? Is it going to be 100,000? You know, where do you see your investor base?
The investors that we're working with typically have minimum $5 million of gain that they would be investing into our fund. We haven't considered going to a lower, more crowdfunding type model just because of the administrative burden of handling that.
That's right. You have many real estate companies and entities. How are they perceiving it besides Toby?
Francis and I were just on a call with one out in Colorado doing a deal, a multifamily deal, and they're looking at it as another source of finance, kind of cheaper capital. And as we know, RXR is doing a deal as well, and they're looking for...
Right, and I would assume Related is going to come out with all of the major names, the same way that Silverstein went into the EB5 business. You know, the legitimate, high-profile operators are going to be into this business. The irony is, when the tax law came out last December, nobody brought up the opportunity zone. It didn't happen really until the article from the Napster and the Forbes article in the summer of this was an opportunity or something as an area. You know, as I continue having new shows later on in the season, we'll talk about the changes taking place, and we're going to see when it finally takes place that these activities really matter. I'd like to thank Mike, Toby, and Francis, and I'll see you next week.